6 years ago, my friend and I were kayaking through a fog-covered bay when we heard a boat rowing somewhere beside us. The strange part was, we could hear it the entire time, but we never actually saw who was rowing it.
6 years ago, in late September, something happened on the water that I still can't explain. My friend Edwin and I had been planning this trip for almost 2 years. The idea was simple. Kayak across Willapa Bay, a massive tidal estuary on the Washington coast, nearly 25 miles long. Normally, it's peaceful, oyster farms, wildlife, quiet water stretching to the horizon. But the weekend we chose, the bay was buried in fog. Thick, heavy coastal fog. Still, neither of us were amateurs. We'd both been kayaking since we were kids. Edwin had even worked as a guide during college. We had GPS, a compass, all the gear we needed. We launched early Saturday morning near Nakata. The plan was simple: paddle toward Long Island, watch some birds, eat lunch on a sandbar, and head back before the tide shifted. For the first hour, everything was normal. The fog swallowed the sound of the world. When you paddle through fog like that, it feels like moving through cotton. Quiet, soft, empty. We could barely see 40 feet in any direction, but we stayed close together, checking our bearings every few minutes. No problem. Until around 9 a.m. That's when I heard it. A splash. At first I thought it was Edwin adjusting his paddle, but when I looked over, his paddle was resting across his kayak. He looked at me and asked, "Did you hear that?" I nodded. We both stopped paddling and just drifted there in the silence. Then we heard it again. Not paddles, oars. The slow, steady sound of someone rowing a boat. The rhythm was unmistakable, and it sounded close, maybe 100 feet away, somewhere to our right. Edwin shrugged and said it was probably another fisherman or kayaker out on the bay. That made sense. Sound travels strangely over water, especially in fog. So we waited. Usually, when visibility is bad, people call out to let others know where they are. Edwin even shouted a quick hello into the fog. But no one answered, and the rowing didn't change. No pause, no hesitation. Just the same steady rhythm. Row, splash, row, splash. So we kept paddling. But something strange started happening. For the next 20 minutes, that rowing sound never got closer, and it never got farther away. It stayed exactly the same distance, like whoever was out there was perfectly matching our speed. At first, it was almost impressive. I remember thinking how incredible it was that someone could keep such a perfect rowing rhythm for so long. But the longer it continued, the more uncomfortable I felt. Neither of us talked much anymore. We just kept paddling, listening. Then at one point, we adjusted our course slightly east toward the shore. And for just a moment, the fog thinned, only for a few seconds. But it was enough. Through the gray mist, I saw it. A small rowboat sitting in the water. Someone was there. I could see the silhouette of a person at the oars. Then the fog closed again, and the boat vanished. 3 seconds. That's all we got. I asked Edwin if he saw it. He said yes, and that's when the feeling in my gut changed. I wanted to leave. There was nothing openly threatening about the situation, but something about it felt wrong. The way the person never responded, the way they seemed to be following us. It didn't feel normal. So I started heading toward the shoreline. Edwin followed. But navigating a tidal bay in thick fog isn't easy. Sandbars shift. Channels move. Mudflats appear where you don't expect them. We paddled southeast as fast as we reasonably could, and the entire time, those rowing sounds followed us. Row, splash, row, splash. Always to our right, always the same distance, Then suddenly, the fog began to lift, not completely, but enough that we could see maybe 100 yards around us. The first thing I did was look to my right. Nothing, just open water. I looked behind us, nothing there either. No boats, no movement, nothing at all. The bay was completely empty, but the rowing had been right there, seconds before. We kept paddling, and strangely, the situation felt even more terrifying now that we could see, because the boat had simply disappeared. About 5 minutes later, we saw the shoreline. Relief washed over me. We paddled straight for land without even looking for a proper landing spot. I jumped out into knee-deep water and dragged my kayak onto the sand. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just stood there breathing, staring out at the foggy bay. Then Edwin called me over. I walked up the beach toward him, and when I saw what he was looking at, my stomach dropped. Footprints, wet, barefoot footprints, leading out of the water. Fresh ones. You could still see water pooling inside the impressions. Whoever made them had stepped onto that beach only minutes ago. But the strange part was, the footprints didn't stop there. They walked a few steps up the sand, turned, then followed the shoreline for a short distance, before finally cutting toward the trees and disappearing into the forest. I traced the trail back with my eyes. The prints were coming from further down the shore, which meant whoever made them had walked along the water's edge, reached the exact spot where we had just landed, and then gone into the woods. Edwin wanted to leave immediately, but I couldn't stop staring at the footprints. They came from somewhere, and I wanted to know where. So against Edwin's better judgment, we followed them, not toward the trees, but back down the beach. After 2 or 3 minutes of walking, I saw it. About 50 yards ahead, pulled halfway onto the sand, was a small wooden rowboat. Dark wood, almost black. The oars were resting inside. It was the same boat. I was absolutely certain. The same shape, the same size, the same color I'd seen through the fog, and wet footprints led away from it. I started walking toward it, but Edwin grabbed my arm. He told me we were leaving. Not asked, told. And something about the fear in his voice made me realize something horrifying. Whoever had been in that boat had somehow reached the shore before us, walked down the beach, arrived exactly where we landed, and disappeared into the forest before we even stepped onto land. We ran back to the kayaks, shoved them into the water, and paddled away as fast as we could. That morning has stayed with me for 6 years. I've tried to explain it. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe we misunderstood something. But one thing still doesn't make sense. We were on the water for over 2 hours, changing direction, adjusting course, navigating through fog, and somehow, someone in a slow wooden rowboat managed to reach land before us, predict the exact spot we would land, and vanish into the woods. Even now, I still don't know what was out there on that bay.